Hey, it's Tandy from Alaska Homestead Academy, and today we're going to be talking about milk kefir, and I am really excited about this class because milk kefir, I believe, is one of those lesser known superfoods that it's so incredibly simple, and it's sustainable, and it doesn't hardly cost anything to make, and it's crazy good for you, and everyone loves it. It's super easy to make. It taste amazing. So we're going to talk about milk kefir today, and I hope by the end of this class you're as excited about it as I am. But the first thing I want to talk about is just what exactly is milk kefir. So here is a quart jar of milk kefir that I started yesterday. You can see it pretty much just looks like a jar of milk. It's a little thick, but it's not super thick like a yogurt would be. But kefir is similar to yogurt in a lot of ways. However, what you're doing with yogurt, you actually would put yogurt cultures in it, and you would culture the yogurt. The milk kefir grains, which I'm going to show you in just a minute what they look like because they're a little crazy, those are actually a form of a SCOBY. And if you've heard of a SCOBY before, that's likely been in reference to a kombucha or a Jun SCOBY. We make a lot of Jun around here, and so that's probably when you've heard of a SCOBY. These look nothing like a kombucha or a Jun SCOBY either. It's kind of fun. They're called grains, and again, I'll show you what they look like in just a few minutes. So, what's different about these is with yogurt, when you make yogurt, you put the culture in the yogurt, you stir it in. I actually put my dehydrator, I'm able to set at the right temperature, and I make a gallon at a time. And so I just put the whole gallon in my dehydrator. It dehydrates overnight. It comes back out. The yogurt stays in the culture stays in the yogurt. With kefir grains, you're constantly taking that culture or the SCOBY out, the grains out, and you're reusing them. What's really fun is these grains will keep growing. So as they grow and as you get too many for your just daily quart that you need, then you can do a couple things with them. You can keep them for yourself and make a whole separate batch. So you can drink your daily kefir, and your separate batch you can use for making cheeses, because this actually can work as a cheese culture. It has the monophilic and the mesophilic cultures in there for making cheese. So that's super fun. We'll definitely delve into that later in this whole cultured milk course that we're doing. But the other thing you can do is you can share them with friends, and how fun to think that you are able to keep this culture basically going, and that you're able to pass it on to other people. And I just love, we have this farm here, and one thing that I see in the wintertime is people will tag us and they'll say, oh, we're enjoying our honeyberries that we picked out at Common Ground, Alaska this summer. It makes me think of summer or whatever. And it's just so neat to think that in people's freezer or in their pantries are foods that we that we grew or that we shared, and to help participate in the health of these families. So it's really an honor. It's a lot of fun. You can either keep your grains and do all sorts of fun and creative things with them, or you can share them, or both, because you're going to end up with a lot of grains if you keep this going for a long time. There are some health claims that are made with milk kefir. Here's the thing. We always have to say this. I'm not making these claims. I'm not claiming that if you drink milk kefir, these things will happen. These are just studies that have been done. These are true life experiences that have happened. So just keep that filter as you're hearing these. But there are things that milk kefir has been known to help with. It's been known to help to lower blood pressure and cholesterol. It's known to help prevent certain kinds of cancer. It can help improve digestion, improve your immune system, or boost your immune system. And it has actually there's been studies where ingested milk kefir has helped with asthma and allergies. Milk kefir has kind of a cool history that we're going to talk about in just a second. And it actually helped with tuberculosis, if you can believe that. So let's talk for a quick minute about the history of kefir, and then I'm going to show you how to make milk kefir. So in ancient history, kefir grains were passed down for generations, and they were kept very much to the culture that they had started. In the northern Caucasus region, near Russia, they had a closely guarded secret, and their closely guarded secret was that they had kefir grains. No one knows exactly where they originated. Some say that they got them as a gift from Muhammad. There's all sorts of lore around it, but the history really starts with these folks in this Caucasus region that had these kefir grains, and they were ingesting kefir regularly. So they were also known for their longevity. As a matter of fact, in that area, in that whole region, they lived longer. Being a centurion was no big surprise for folks in their region. They just were known to live longer. And so as people were studying them and trying to figure out exactly how they were able to do this, the one factor that they had different was that they had these kefir grains. Well, they were not willing to share the kefir grains with anyone. So a Russian doctor really desperately wanted some of these kefir grains, and he was willing to go to take any measure to get a hold of some. So he hired a spy, a beautiful female spy, and he sent her into this Caucasus camp, and her whole purpose was to leave the camp with some grains, whatever it took. He just said, whatever you can do to separate these people from their grains so we can have some. They didn't want all of them, but they just wanted a handful so they could study them and figure out how to create more. And they just wanted to know more about these kefir grains because it was such a closely guarded secret. The spy's name was Irina, and she was up for the task. So she went into their community and did her best to win the favor of the prince, the local prince. Well, she did a good job of it. He fell in love with her, and he wanted nothing more than to marry her. And so she said that all she wanted was that she wanted some grains. And he said, no, you can have grains, but you can have all these other things. But the grains were closely guarded. No way was she going to get her hands on any of these kefir grains. So she left, and he went and got her and brought her back. And she didn't want to be there anymore. So she caused kind of a big ruckus, and it got the attention of the Tsar. And the Tsar came in and he said, okay, something's got to give here. Can't be having all this. And the poor prince just said, listen, I want to marry her and I'll give her whatever she wants. She just can't have the kefir grains. And the Tsar said, well, that's exactly what she wants. So you're going to have to give them to her. Eventually the prince relented. There were some kefir grains given to Irina. She left the poor prince brokenhearted, left with her grains. Her mission was accomplished, but the poor prince, he didn't get anything out of the deal, and he lost some of his grains. So at that point, this was in the early 1900s, and at that point, the doctor got this doctor that wanted a team of doctors who wanted these grains so badly. They now had the grains in their possession, and they were able to start working with them. And that's really how they started being spread across the world. But they didn't really take off actually until recently. There was kind of a surge of them in the 70s, a little bit. And then after that, there really wasn't much that was happening until recently. Now, the really fun thing about these grains is these have to be part of the original grains that are as old as 4,000 years old. There were some old kefir grains found in a tomb that's 4,000 years old. So these are old grains. But we can't create these grains. We have no idea how they were made. They remake themselves, but humanity has not figured out how to redo them. Isn't that crazy? So these grains are part of those ancient kefir grains from years ago. So I just had to kind of share that fun history because I think that's really neat. Let's talk for a little bit more about kefir really quick. So kefir has significantly less lactose than fresh milk because of the fermentation, so it's much, much easier to digest. Another historical factor is that they'd use a goat skin, and they'd hang right inside the door. They'd fill the goat skin with milk and have these kefir grains in there. And so every time you'd walk in or out the door, you'd just kind of move the goat skin, and that would kind of shake things up inside. And that was their kind of natural way of going about keeping this moving. So when you have your kefir grains, it's really good to shake them up just a couple times during the day, just keep things moving, and it kind of keeps that fermentation happening. The name kefir in Turkish means good thing. So I think that was kind of a fun little tidbit too. If you buy milk kefir from me, it's going to come in a container like this, And it's, when you see it, it'll actually probably be a little coagulated. It may have some separation, and your kefir grains are inside. I do switch these out once a week, but your kefir grains are probably going to be a little tired. They're going to need to be revived. Super simple. So what you're going to do is you're actually going to discard the milk out of this particular container, and you're going to discard that. You can just throw it away. I'm going to save mine because I want to feed it to the chickens. It's really good for our chickens. So I'm going to feed the discard to them. So you're just going to pour it right through the strainer. And the strainer is going to catch all your grains. These are some really nice grains in here. This has drained. It just had a little bit of milk in it. And this is what's left are your little kefir grains. And some of these are really good sized. They're going to grow and multiply as you are making new kefir every day. So, but for today, these are some really nice grains. So the next thing you're going to do, you're going to get rid of this. You'll give those to the chickens or do whatever you want to do. And then you're actually going to move this over here and pour out your grains into a quart jar. Now you have a little over a tablespoon worth of grains in your jar here, which is perfect to make a quart of kefir. So depending on how tired your grains are, you may get to use this batch that you're making today, or you actually might have to discard this one too. So what you're going to do to make your kefir actually is you put your grains in here, and now you're literally just going to cover them with milk. Now you can use just about any milk to make these. You can use skim milk, you can use whole milk. Of course, I never recommend anything but whole milk, because actually you need the fat that's in the milk to digest milk. It's the fat that works together with the sugar to make it digestible. So I never ever recommend skim milk. But so once you've got this filled, then I like to put plastic over top if I'm not using a plastic lid, and then just put the lid on. And now this is going to sit, you shake it up real good, and now this is just going to sit on your counter for 24 hours. That's it. So when you open it up the following day, you should see some separation, you should see some coagulation, and your grain should have floated to the top. Also, when you open it, sometimes there's some effervescence. So when you move it around, you can kind of see some bubbles starting. It's like making champagne milk. It's amazing. So if you see that effervescence, that's actually very, very good. If not, if you don't see that with this original, then your grains were probably a little more tired, and you're going to have to actually discard this one as well. So go ahead and, do like we did before. You're just going to discard it into another jar and feed it to your chickens, or you can drink it. It won't hurt you. It just won't have all the good probiotics and stuff that it'll have once it's been revived. So this is just going to sit for 24 hours. Now you know what to do. If it's not ready, you're just going to pour this off and start over again. And the second time, then your grains should be good to go. You're going to want to change this out daily. So you're going to have a quart of milk kefir every single day. So before you even start with kefir, you really need to be thinking about how you're going to use it. There's 3 of us that drink it in this house, and we drink it every morning for breakfast. Every single day I make a milk kefir smoothie. It's about a small coffee cup full is all. They're so good, and we just kind of sip on it all morning. We start with our breakfast and we just kind of sip on it all morning. The next thing we're going to do with our kefir is we're actually going to make a smoothie. So I'm going to show you how simple it is to make a smoothie with kefir. But before I do that, I want to share some other things that you can do with kefir, because it's kind of no fun if you think, well, you have to have a smoothie every day. Maybe you get tired of them, or, maybe it just doesn't really fit into your schedule. So there are a lot of things that you can do with this milk kefir. The other thing to know is it's good in your fridge for a bit. So you could take your kefir and switch it out, put it in another jar, and put it in your fridge. Just put the date on there, and you can keep it for a week or 2 in your fridge. It's not going to hurt. It's actually going to be really good. So it's okay if you're not making a smoothie a day. That's just what we do most days. However, you can use kefir in place of sour cream in recipes. So you could actually use it to make like stroganoff. It's really good for stroganoff as long as it's thick enough, or you'll have to thicken it a little bit. You can use it in place of your liquid in ranch dressing. So yummy. So think of how you can elevate the nutrients in your ranch dressing if you're using kefir in there instead of milk. Plus it's going to make it much more digestible. You can actually drink it plain. You can just drink it plain, just take a few sips. It's good stuff. You can also use it as a replacement for buttermilk in recipes. So you could use it in biscuits or anything that you're doing with buttermilk. You can soak your chicken in kefir, similar to what you would do in buttermilk. And if you've not heard of that before, what you can do with a chicken that's maybe a little tough is you can actually take it once it's thawed, soak it in buttermilk or kefir for most of the day. I just put it in a Ziploc bag, and it makes, for one thing, it flavors your chicken like none other. And it also will tenderize it a little bit. So it adds flavor, it tenderizes it, and it actually adds some nutrients into it, which is really cool. Another thing that you can do is you can use kefir to make cream soups. You can add kefir, like if you were making like a cream of potato soup, you could add kefir instead of milk. It adds some really good flavor there. There's also something cool that I have not tried yet, but once we try it, we'll add it to this series if it works. There's something called kefir bread, and it's a bread that you can make without yeast because you're using the lift from the fermentation of the kefir. So it would be like a cross between maybe like a sourdough and a regular bread. So I'm going to try it. I haven't tried it yet, but that'll be kind of fun. So it's called kefir bread if you want to try it on your own. So there's tons of stuff that you can do with this. You just do need to make sure that you're changing it out every day or every other day. Some people let theirs sit for 48 hours, and that is perfectly fine. It's going to have a little more sour to it. So especially if you were wanting to do like a sour cream replacement in a recipe, you couldn't really put it on tacos because it's typically not quite that thick. You could use it in stroganoff, something that uses that sour cream flavor. You could totally do that, and then you could let it ferment for a couple days. But today I'm going to show you how we make our smoothies every single morning. Remember, we have a honeyberry farm, so we have lots and lots of honeyberries at our disposal. You can use any berries you want. You can use bananas along with strawberries. You can add anything you want. You could put mint in here if you wanted a mint smoothie. The options are endless. However you like to flavor your smoothie, that's what you can do in here. But today we're going to do specifically a honeyberry smoothie. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to strain off my kefir. Now you'll notice if you look at this is completely separated. The kefir grains are up here, and this is really, really thick up on this top part, and then this is definitely thinner. There's also going to probably be some grains at the bottom. You can't really see it very well, but when you shake it up, you can definitely see. So this has been sitting for about 24 hours on the counter. So it's coagulated, it's done its fermenting. I'm going to shake it up a little bit, and then after I'm done shaking it, when you open it up, you can definitely see kind of the effervescence and the bubbles. Can you see the bubbles in there? I'm going to strain my kefir. I just strain it right into my blender. Why make extra dishes, right? So I've shaken up my kefir, and now I'm going to strain it in. And it does tend to get, it's pretty thick, so it does tend to get a little backed up. So you can just use a spoon to kind of coax it through. These kefir grains are so happy they're growing like crazy. Now we use raw milk for our kefir, but for the kefir that we sell you, we don't ever use raw milk. We're actually using Alaska Range dairy milk, which is a full fat milk. So it's still very good for you. And it's also minimally pasteurized, which is also important for us to have minimally pasteurized milk. But it's sold at the grocery store, so we can legally sell kefir made that way. But you can totally switch to goat milk or raw cow milk, whatever kind of milk you normally drink, you can switch to that. So you can see this is dripping down into here slowly. So these grains are growing so fast that I actually, usually I can just do this right into the blender without having to take the grains out, but I've got so many that I need to put them into a jar while it waits. So now we can get a little more kefir going at a time. This is the most time-consuming part of it. And some people just get out the grains that they want. So this is plenty of grains for a quart for sure. And then they'll just pour all the rest in. The kefir grains are not going to hurt you. Actually, it adds nutrients to it. So it adds nutrients to your shake. But I don't prefer to do that. So we'll keep working it through. So while that's finishing straining, I'll wash this jar out once a week or so, but I actually am just going to pour these directly back into my jar. And while that finishes straining, I'm actually going to go ahead and start my new kefir. So what I've done here is I've actually poured my grains back in, and then I'm just going to fill it up with milk, and that's it. So I'll put milk in this to the rim. Put my lid back on. Clean off the outside because I did make a mess. Shake it up a couple times. Set it on the counter, and tomorrow morning it'll be ready. So we'll finish working this through. Actually, I'm going to pour what's left in. So here's where it gets kind of fun, because you get to choose your very own flavors. We almost always do honeyberry. So, as most of you know, if you've ever followed any of my recipes in the past, I don't typically do a lot of measurements. Everything is very ish. So, I take 2 handfuls of honeyberries. We have some maple syrup that some friends in New York send us every year. This is the good stuff. This right here, we do oftentimes bring up a little extra and sell it. So if you have the opportunity to get some of this New York maple syrup, there is nothing better. If you've not had fresh maple syrup, you're missing out. All right, and then you blend it up and it's ready. All right, this is all blended up. Now it's as simple as pouring some and enjoying a glass.